thinking about like a company that going through like this growth phase, going like through scale, how do you think about balancing growth and profitability as you're going through that journey? And that's what I'm excited to hear about from like the finance side of the house. I know like I have my own opinions, but how do you think about that, balancing those two things? They feel like they're usually at odds as you're going through this phase.
And,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, just real quick. And almost think like sharing any insights you have from talking with your CEOs respectively, like how do you like navigate that conversation, and what are the things that you're considering or the levers that you're willing to pull through this decision-making process?
Yeah, I think that this is like a classic issue that startups face is we don't have much money, but we need to spend money to grow. How much should we spend and how fast should we be growing, right? It's what this is the hard part about startups. And I don't want to give like a classic finance answer of like, just look at the numbers. That's all you have to do. But that's, in my opinion, that's kind of the answer here is you have to make sure that you are growing, but that is efficient growth. So there are a number of metrics you can look at: CAC, LTV to CAC, churn, some sales efficiency metrics of how much are you spending in sales and marketing versus what are you bringing in terms of new ARR. And so as long as you are efficiently growing, that's what you should be measuring against. As soon as that gets out of hand and you're spending too much money to acquire customers, or you're unable to retain them because churn spikes because you don't have the infrastructure in place to support those new customers, then all of that spending and burn to grow is worthless, because the whole point is to add value in the future. And if you can't do that with good quality customers that are going to stick around for a long time, then you may as well not have spent the money to acquire them in the first place. So make sure that you're in line with your CEO about which metrics you're going to be checking and levers that you can pull, whether that is hiring new salespeople, holding off for a while, or pulling back on marketing spend while you make sure that different cohorts are progressing the way that you want. Those are the things that I would look out for.
Follow-up question. Like you're talking about CAC and churn, which are probably ultimately owned by the head of marketing or the head of CS. So what role do you play in their spend, or how they think about adding new members to their team, like adding another CS team member, or like spending on ads? Like, what is your role in that? Are you in those conversations? Apparently I can't talk today. Like, I guess I just think, like, how do you navigate those conversations, especially in a market like right now where people aren't willing to just like spend cash on anything? Yeah,
I think one thing you have to do is, and it depends on the organization and how big they are and mature and how many people are involved, but I see finance and operations sort of as the glue that holds the different departments together. So knowing that a decision that's made in marketing to increase spend or decrease spend, that will affect the sales team, and the sales team will affect the customer success team, and that might affect what the product team is building in the future. And so being sort of the glue to make sure that the organization understands how one decision in one department affects the rest, and measuring metrics in this department that will affect things that go on in the other departments. That's how I see finance and operations helping with those decisions.
Nice. Chris, let's go back to how do you think about balancing profitability and growth? How do you think about it?
Well, I've yet to be at a profitable company, but I think I understand balancing growth and value, right? Enterprise value. And it depends on the company too. You may be at a company at this stage, especially in the current condition, where you do want to drive to profitability. But going back to the original question, for me, it does go back to starting with the basics, and that is building a financial plan that gives you enough levers and enough detail that you can see that when you change, let's say, your cost for paid leads, what impact that's going to have down the line on revenue. And as that drives revenue and customer acquisition up, then we need to look at, okay, well, we have all these new customers onboarding. How many customers can a single you know, in our case, integration specialists, can they handle at one time? And each of these things, as you change the number of leads, how does it ultimately change how many CS reps you need, for example, or whatever those hires are. And then in our case, so looking at 2020, we built a plan in Q4 of 2019 with limited information and a lot of guessing. But we involved each department head and said, you know, what are you currently spending, or telling them what they're currently spending, and then helping them identify, okay, what do you think you'll need to spend money on, or who do you need to hire in the coming year? And we built it out for at least those next 12 months. But in January, February, we all know that COVID-19 hit and things dramatically changed. And whether they dramatically changed or not, I still think it's a good practice that at least every quarter you go back and look and say, what have we learned, and what do we need to change in this plan? How did our levers change? How did our conversion, like maybe we were way off on how many leads we would convert to demos, and demos to customers, and so forth. And so we went through an exercise in actually the very beginning of April for the rest of the year, and said, okay, well, we changed how we measure leads, and we expect to get less leads from events and conferences, and so we modified everything and looked and said, okay, well, here's our new revenue goal, and here's how it impacts our cash flow, and we're going to have to slow hiring. How's that going to impact sales? So for me, it starts at building a really good financial plan that has enough levers that you can test it on an ongoing basis. And then you can make better decisions about how you're going to drive your growth. And you'll get better and better and more accurate over time because you're changing periodically to get closer to reality. So I think that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. That was great.